Flosstube. I'm Audrey Marine, back for another episode. And I didn't make any notes today, but I have laid out a bunch of things here, and so I'm just going to go through them. But I want to let you guys know, like the last few days was like, Saturday I got to film a Flosstube, Saturday I got to film a Flosstube. And then last night, the boys and I were talking about all the things that we need to do tomorrow being Saturday, which is now today. And I was like, okay, I'll take you to Target so we can go look around the toy section and look at clearance, Christmas crap. And then we'll go to Meijer to do grocery shopping because we need to get a lot of stuff for a New Year's Eve party that we're having. We were supposed to have friends coming in from Chicago. And I was like, okay, well, since they're going to be in town and then these other people are going to be in town, then we can invite our other in town all the time friends and we'll have a New Year's Eve party. And I said this in front of the kids, and so they clung on to it. And now the friends from Chicago can't come, and I'm like, oh, we still have to have a party. So this morning, we go out. Ryan stayed home to do some work, and then I took the kids out. We go to Target, we go to Meijer, get home, put all the stuff away. I'm like in pajamas. I take the bra off and everything, and I'm like ready to just be home. And I was like, oh, I gotta film a Flosstube. So I had to get dressed again because, you know, you guys don't want to see me in my jammies. But I have a couple finishes to show you, and I have some FFOs that I'm excited to finally share with you. And then I have progress on a couple pieces, and then we'll talk about New Year's plans. So that's what we'll do. So when I saw you last, I know I showed Hannah Campbell, and I showed Harriet Hay and some other things, but we'll just get into it. I didn't go back and rewatch that video recently. I rewatched it after I put it up on YouTube to make sure there were no issues or anything, but I haven't rewatched it recently to refresh my memory. But I do have a finish on Harriet Hay. This is very exciting. This is a piece that I started on October 19th. I started it on my birthday, and I was gifted the chart by my friend Laura. Hi, Laura. This is a Mill on the Floss chart, Harriet Hay. You see the odd spelling of Harriet here. And you can get this as a PDF or as a hard copy. And anyway, it's a really neat chart. It's an odd, I think it's kind of a quirky design, but you'll see. Here she is, all done. So I get to send her off to the framers now. I finished this one only about a week ago or something. It may not have even been that long ago. I have it written down in my planner what day I finished it, but it turned out really well, and I'm really happy with it. I used 103s. On the chart, it calls for either DMC or Soie d'Alger, but if you call the attic, they have a 103 conversion for you. Now, I will say that between the stitched model that is photographed and available to view on the website and the printed chart, there are some discrepancies. So there are going to be places that you'll come across something on the chart and you'll ask yourself, is that how it's supposed to be? And then you may look to the model and go, well, the model's different. So then you just make your own decision. But besides that, I think I made a couple genuine mistakes that are no big deal. One thing I did was in this basket, I was stitching. I gotta figure out where my camera is. It's right there. In this basket, these are eyelets, which I really enjoyed stitching, but I realized that I stitched 16 leg eyelets, and I think maybe you only needed to do 8. So I may have made that harder on myself than it needed to be. But overall, this was really fun. And you know, once I got to near the end, I was just going great guns. I was really excited. I could see progress being made, and I was like, oh, I just want to finish it before the end of the year. And I did. And I think, you know, that over one verse, I know a lot of people shy away from over one, or they only do half stitches. They'll do like a 10th stitch for over one, but because it's letters and not dent stitching, I actually think it was easy enough to do. It was nice. I did a few words, and then I would do something else and do a few more words and do something else. And yeah. And then one thing I had been thinking about, and I think I mentioned this on a previous video, was I wanted to figure out a way to put my own signature on reproduction samplers. And I came up with something that I really like. So probably a little over a month ago, I found on eBay a really neat antique sampler by a young woman with a last name of Holloway. And actually the seller had two different samplers. One was by, I think it was a Marianne Holloway, and one was by an Elizabeth Holloway, if I remember correctly. They may have been different first names than that, but they were something traditional like that. And they were both made within just a few years of each other, and with the same last name, being sold by the same seller on eBay. I think they were probably made by sisters. We can jump to that conclusion, right? It may not be true, but I think so. Anyway, I really fell in love with those samplers. The one in particular I thought was really neat, and I really wanted to get it. But then when I saw that the other one, the other one had the same last name, I wanted to get them together, and I just couldn't justify making that purchase. So one bid on each of them was made, and they were sold to somebody else, and I'm hoping that it was like Nicola Parkman or Teresa Vanette or something like that, so they will be charted and reproduced. But all this to say, on one of them, there was this little lion pair confronting lions and their tails together. I think that's how it was, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, I will insert a picture here because I saved a picture. I took a screenshot of those lions together. And what I did was I took one of the lions and then I charted an A, an old looking A, and then I charted numbers, 2, 3 for 2023. And of course for next year, it will have to be 24, etc. And what I did was I charted the lion, the A, and the 23 all together, and then I stitched it over one, and it's right here. And it's hard to see, I know. I wonder if it will focus. Can I get that? Yeah, I'm just using my iPhone. I'm not using a professional camera or anything, so I think it still wants to focus on me. But if you can kind of see this squiggle here, this curly Q, that's the lion's tail. And this is the lion, and then this star-shaped thing up here is actually the A, and then it says 2, 3. And I selected 103 that pretty closely matched this fabric. This is 46 count H&H by number 12 Stitch Co. Hi, Nicola. And I thought it worked really well with these colors. It's kind of a orchid, mauve, brown, gray. I don't know. It's an odd color, but I love it. And so I found, I don't have a ton of 103s, but I had something that was kind of like a lilac color, and that worked. Because I wanted my signature to be on there and to be visible, but I didn't want it to jump out at you. So that's what I settled on. I'm very happy with that. Very happy with that finish. And then I also finished the rose and the giant pear. Now for this one, as I was stitching it, as I was finishing it, I still could not decide if I was going to have this finished into a small pillow, like I had seen someone do, which I thought was really pretty, or if I want to have it put in a big chunky frame, like a lot of people have done. I know Brenda, Sampler Stitcher, put hers in a big chunky frame, and it looks really cool, and a lot of people have done that. I just love how it looks. It's ridiculous ornate frame around this teeny tiny little thing. So because I couldn't figure out if I'm going to frame this or if I'm going to make it into a pillow, have it made into a pillow, I knew that I needed to put my signature within the design, like on Harriet Hay. I couldn't put it outside. So this one, because there's not a ton of room, I just put an A and a 23 right there. And I stitched that over one in Swath Surfine, because this is on 56 count Creme Brulee by Tabby Cat. And some of you follow me on Instagram, so you would have read this already. But there is this teeny tiny duck here. And Morris lately keeps going on about ducks. And so when I finished this, I showed it to him. I was like, look at the duck. It's got a duck. And he was like, oh. And then I said, what do you think his name is? And he goes, he looks like a Jeff. I was like, okay, Jeff the duck. So Jeff the duck, he's either going to be made into a pillow or framed. So here's the chart for that one. It is a Hands Across the Sea. And it looks like, I think it's 18 colors. 5, 6, 7, 8, yeah, 18 colors. And I did it on 56 count. And I really like how it turned out. It's so tiny. It's about 6 1/3 by 2 1/3. It's a really small design, but very pretty. I really like it. I think I would, I'm thinking about having it made into a pillow and then stitching another one and putting that on the wall. I do like it so much, I think. And it did, I had a hiatus in there where I worked really vigorously on it for 3 days and got a lot done. And then I kind of put it aside and only stitched on it here or there for a very short amount of time. But then once I picked it up again to finish it, it went quickly. So there's a lot of stitching in that little design though. But if you have the time to put into it. Okay, so those are my 2 finishes. And I did finish another ornament, but I did not keep it. I went to Persnickety out in Zionsville, I don't know, a few weeks ago, a couple weeks ago, something like that, because I got it in my head that I wanted to make a Christmas ornament for our friends in Chicago for their son. So I thought, well, I just need to go get a male hair ornament and I can stitch that up really quickly. And I did get one of the smaller ones. These Santas, these take several days. So I didn't get anything like this. I got a small peppermint candy ornament, and I'll insert a picture of that here because I did remember to take a picture of it before I wrapped it up and sent it in the mail. So I thought if I'm a good auntie, then I will remember to make one every year, but we'll see. But it was cute. I stitched it with the included materials, and then I backed it with some glittery paper and put a red loop on it, and I found the little 2023 charm at Michael's. So I did that. Yeah. I have made some progress on Hannah Campbell. Now, because I finished Harriet Hay and The Rose of the Giant Pear, I thought, oh, well, I need to get back to Hannah Campbell, one of the few whips that I have going. I really need to put some time into it. And I skipped down a little bit. I'll show you guys. So when I last showed this, I had Hannah Campbell, I had some of these crosses done here, and I had, I think, the border to here. So what I did, instead of coming over here and working on this border or continuing with this over one, I just went ahead one night and skipped down to these eyelets. I thought, you know what, I really just want to stitch those eyelets. And I'm so glad that I did, because I had so much fun stitching the eyelets that it's time consuming, and it really hurts my fingers with all the, you loop it and then you tug it, and then you loop it and then you got to grab it and tug it, and you loop it and you got to grab it and tug it every time. But they are 8-legged Algerian eyelets as per the instructions, and it is so cool. It is the coolest thing. It looks so nice. So for everybody who doesn't want to do eyelets and you're just doing smart crosses, fine, just do smart crosses. But don't be afraid to try eyelets, because I've only been stitching on linen for a little over a year, and I stitched eyelets on Harriet Hay. And I think that was my first time stitching eyelets. Was in those 2 baskets, and then there were a few eyelets in the peacock feathers on the butt. So it's not like I had a ton of experience. And what I did was that, there are 4 colors within these diamonds of eyelets, and I carry the thread because I don't want to stitch one purple eyelet and then tie it off and stitch one purple eyelet and tie it on one. And so what I did, and I also don't want to count all the way over because you can miscount, right? So I may have started with the purple and then did the pink and then the dark red and then this orangey coral color and then continue. And as I ran out of thread, then I tied it off and started a new one, but then I just carry them over here. So I got these diamonds done, and there's going to be a whole row of them, and it's going to be beautiful. I do love how the eyelets look. But what I was saying is that I'm so glad that I skipped down to the eyelets and started with that, because it got me excited about this project again. And I was like, oh, well, now I can do some more over one. There's still so much of it. And I stitched some more of these crosses here. And I started the name of the town in which she lived. You see, I still haven't finished these letters here. I need to go back up and do that. And then I did a little bit more of the border, and I started on this vase. So I'm really excited about this project again. So I'm glad that I stitched some eyelets. I really like stitching eyelets. Like I say, it's hard on my fingers, but it all is. It's all hard on my fingers. I did order a hoop stand to hold my hoop, because I find I'm getting a lot of fatigue in my left hand, especially in this area right here, just from holding it. And then the tips of my fingers, I'll feel fatigue and pain in there from how I grip the hoop and the fabric. It's just, it happens, right? So I ordered a stand. Who knows when it'll be here. Okay, but I have made progress on Hannah Campbell. I'll show you the full chart. Let's open the spread. So you can see a full row of those eyelets made into diamonds. But yeah, so this is the vase I've started on. And I'm excited because I stitched the whole vase. I haven't stitched all the flowers or the buds or whatever you want to call on the stems, but because I stitched the vase, then whenever I want, I can start on these waves, and then I'll get into this tree here. Oh. So I still have a long way to go, but I can see myself finishing this in 2024. I don't think that is an unreasonable goal. When I started it, I made so much progress so quickly, and I was like, oh, I can finish it so soon. I'm getting a little burnt out. There's a lot of over one, and I know a lot of people say terrible things about over one and how much they hate it, and it's just, it discourages them from working on certain projects. There's nothing inherently wrong with over one, but when you have dense over one stitching, and even though 103s are very fine, to this bird right here and this bird, to stitch his whole belly, the whole bird in over one, you just end up with this really dense, oh my gosh, and it's just so much stuff on the back in this one little area. Yeah. But, and another thing, okay, so when I was working on this before, I was talking about how this legacy linen, it was like really, it seems really thick and rich. It feels nice, and I think it will look good when it's all done, but I was lamenting on how difficult it was to find holes, right? But the more I work on it, the more I get used to it, and the more I actually really like it. So I think I would like to purchase more of it for other projects in the future. So that's another good thing that came out of it. Now the other thing I have is a new start. I've been watching Flosstube regularly now, and one of the ladies I like to watch is Sew Me Sarah. She is in Ireland, or Northern Ireland, I think actually. And she, for this year and maybe last year, and certainly she's planning for next year, to have a project in which she puts one thread a day. So I thought, well, that's a really good idea, and it would be interesting to see something come together over a length of time, just putting the same amount of stitches into it every day. And so I really liked that idea, and I had kind of settled on, I was thinking about, and then did ultimately settle on Carmelle Azzopardi from Hands Across the Sea for a thread a day project. But then I decided, because I'm going to use spooled silk, and I know I'm not going to measure my threads. I'm not going to pull off 18 inches of thread every time, or 24 inches or 12 inches or whatever I decide. I'm not going to do that. So what I decided was to put in an hour a day, and that way there's no measuring, and what I get in that hour is what I get in, and that hour will cover cutting thread, threading my needle, tying things off, whatever. And so I started this on Christmas Eve. I started this on 56 count. Here's the fabric. This is 56 count Old Mushroom by XG Design, and I love it. It's so soft, and I don't know what she does to it, but it smells really good too. So that helps. And it's 56, it's really soft, and I love the modeling. I think you guys can see it. It kind of matches my sweater. Now the chart calls for cockle shell, or suggests cockle shell. I do have cockle shell, but I didn't like the feel of that fabric. So I decided to switch to this, decided to sub it out for this. And as I say, I started on Christmas Eve. I put an hour into it as I had planned. And I used Swath Surfing because Barry of Stitch Folk, thank you Barry, had gifted me a set of surfing silks for the rose and the giant pear. And wouldn't you know that 2664 was used in that set, and 664 is what is called for Carmel, and so 2664 would be the Swath Surfing. And I wish somebody had told me that when I started this, because it like hit me like a ton of bricks when I figured it out that they just slap a 2 in front of it. So I thought, oh well, I have one spool, 100 meter spool of Swath Surfing, so shouldn't I use that instead of going through multiple spools of 103 664, and I'm working on 56 count anyway. So I put in an hour on Christmas Eve, and then I was looking at it, and I was looking at it, and I was looking at it, and I thought, you know, it's just not giving me the coverage that I want, believe it or not, because I earlier this year had stitched Elizabeth Wood on 56 count with 103, and I really liked how full it was, how full the stitches looked. And I just thought, oh, am I gonna do this whole thing and wish I had used 103? So I put it down for a day, and I didn't work on it on Christmas. And then I went back to it the next day, Boxing Day, and I thought, it's fine. I even stitched some 103 stitches right next to it to take a look. And I thought, you know, I do like the fuller look. I really like that. But I think I need to mix it up a bit. So we'll just use the Swath Surfing, and you know what? It's really pretty. It's so pretty. This is a really bright, rich fire engine red, and I love it. And I have so much fabric. Sorry, Nancy. That should make Laura laugh. but I don't want to cut it. I don't want to cut it until I've gotten down to here, and then I can cut it. I also don't have a serger, so I don't want it to fray. But this is the chart. It's really pretty. When Nicola first released this, I think it was back in August, the first thing I saw was that chicken. I was like, I need to stitch it. It's got a ridiculous bird on it. It's so pretty. Here's a slightly larger shot of it. It's really pretty. And I didn't have a red sampler going, so I was thinking about starting this next year, but it got to be Christmas Eve, and I was like, I'm just gonna start it because I don't have a red sampler going, and it's driving me nuts. I need a red sampler going. I actually would like to have a couple going, but I don't think I have any others. Because in the Words of Wisdom box, which I'll talk about that on a later video, in the Words of Wisdom box, there are 2 red sampler charts in that box. One I've already completed, Elizabeth Hull, and the other red sampler that is available in the Words of Wisdom box, I'm not going to stitch. It just doesn't strike my fancy, and I don't want to put hours into something I'm not really excited about. So I have the chart, and it's just part of my collection, but everything else in the box I was really excited about. So, okay. So let me show you now, since I've shown you my progress, my finishes, and my new start, I will show you some FFOs. So you guys might remember that I stitched Spring Quaker by Lila Studio, I don't know. And I finished it, I showed it to you guys, and then I never spoke of it again because shortly thereafter, I sent it off to L&M Framing in Ohio. This was back in September, I think. And I got it back, and it's beautiful, and I gifted it to my mother for Christmas. So I'll insert a picture here so you guys can take a look. Now this is on my blue wall in my living room. I just took the photo before I wrapped it up and brought it to her for Christmas. So I finished that, and I think I know she really liked it, because I worked on that piece for 4.5 months, you know. And so there were times that I was actually visiting her and working on that piece. And every time she saw me working on it, she's like, let me see. Oh, I like it. It's so pretty. I'm like, oh. And like halfway into that piece, I was like, okay, I will finish this. I'll just get it done and I'll have it framed and I'll give it to her for Christmas. And so that was good motivation for me to finish it. I wanted to finish it well before Christmas because I wanted to beat any kind of rush that was going to fall down on L&M framing. Now, when I sent Spring Quaker, I also sent 2 other things because I thought, well, if I'm sending this for framing, I might as well send a couple other things. One of the other things I sent was Maker and Mender by Brenda Gervais. Elisa texted me and she gave me a bunch of different frame options for Spring Quaker, for Maker and Mender, and for the third thing, which I think you can see right there actually. So I'll show you that in a moment. But I wasn't crazy about any of the frames that she had suggested for Maker and Mender. And then I thought, oh, well, you know what? I really like this other one that you suggested for Spring Quaker. Can we just use that one? She's like, yeah, it'll work great. But I didn't realize how fat it was. So Maker and Mender has a very fat frame, but I do think the coloring works and I really like the style of the frame. This is it. I mean, I love the frame. I would like to see this frame on a bigger piece. So it's funny, I was talking about putting a really big, ornate, chunky frame on the rose and the giant pear, and I still think that would work. But this one is like a medium size stitched piece, and I almost think it needs a smaller frame, but you know, it's in this now. The thing is though, it's all alone. Right, and I haven't even hung it. I can't figure out where to put it because it's all by itself. When I have half a dozen things to put together and you can make a gallery all at once, I think that'll be easier. But I knew this was probably just going to be on its own for a while. I am happy with the frame though. I think it's beautiful. Lisa did a great job. I got museum glass. I figured if we're paying to have it framed, just pay a little bit more to have it. Oh, and I'm never sending anything to Michael's again. I knew that Michelle, Farm Girl Dry Goods, she's always going on about Michael's and how they do such a good job. And maybe the people at her Michael's too. But I'm thinking back to when I had those 2 baby samplers framed at Michael's. And it wasn't cheap. And it wasn't, at the time, I was overjoyed. I thought, oh, this is so great. But now seeing these frame jobs, I'm like, oh, I really wish that I should have just sent those to a professional framer, but oh well. This is all part of the learning experience, right? Now the last thing I sent to Lisa at L&M Framing, you can find them on Instagram, but you can also just search online. And I'll post a link below here. But the last thing I sent was this little Scarlet House piece, a present to Esther Clark. I love those dogs, especially these 2 at the bottom. I think they're so cute. I look at this piece and I remember the few pin stitches that I put into it. And look, they've held. And I asked Lisa to select a frame that could stand up on its own. A big fat one. And I like the brown tones better of the frame that is on Maker and Mender and the one that I put on Spring Quaker. But I think the black really works with this because it makes this pop and the letters here. And then I like this gold beading. I think that's really nice. So this has just been sitting up in this cabinet here for weeks. But it's really cool. And she did put a wire on it so I can hang it if I want. But it does stand up nicely. It's really good. I have finished a lot of things this year. One thing I meant to talk about last video was that December 5th of 2022, I started my first project on linen. I had been cross-stitching for years, but it was all just Mill Hill kits on perforated paper. And it was December 5th of last year that I started to stitch a baby sampler for our friends Jordan and McKenna. And from there, all of this has just snowballed. And as I stitch things, I think, oh, this is taking a while. Like Spring Quaker took 4.5 months. It's like, what else could I have gotten done in 4.5 months? But then, but I've also been keeping a list of all my finishes. And I actually have gotten a lot of things done. And some of them are sizable. Now, not all of them are fully finished. Only a few things are framed. Some things have been given away. But I have 40 finishes. Now, some of these are really tiny. Like these. They're so cute. But I thought I would show you a couple things that I finished this year. This is Just Nan, Romeo, and Juliet. These are so cute. These are actually on Lugana because I was buying fabric and didn't know what I was doing. But I saw a 32 count Silvery Moon and I was like, that's a great color. And then I'm stitching on it. I was like, this doesn't feel like linen, because it's not. But things you learn. So I finished 2 baby samplers. I finished Spring Quaker. And I finished Harriet Hay and Maker and Mender. And I finished Elizabeth Wood. Let's put it right side up for you. There's Elizabeth Wood. So now I've got all these things that I can send off to the framer. I finished a couple things out of Words of Wisdom. I finished this little thing, and I left the sticker on here so I know what fabric it is, because I need to buy more of the same fabric because I have 2 more charts that match this. This is also a Just Nan. I think this is Sparkle Bee. So that's an ornament. And I finished, I say I finished this. I didn't stitch the band at the bottom. I chose not to do that, and I made my own changes in this chart here. But I do look at it every once in a while and ask myself if I want to stitch the band on the bottom, if I'm happy with it, do I even want to display it anywhere? This is something I did all the stitching on, but I have not put it together yet. This is going to be a pin cushion. This is also a Just Nan. This is Queen of the Needle. You should still be able to get this chart if you're interested in it. Look at the little mouse riding the turtle. So cute. And that's on 32 count Charlotte's Pink by Weeks. See, I started on 32 count, and then I very quickly progressed into the higher counts. Oh, this is, I think this is Spring in the Meadow is what this is called. So you can either frame this, or the idea is that you would have it turned into a little needle case. And so you know, it folds in like that. There's a charm that came with it that's supposed to be stitched there, but I opted not to put it there. Let's see, what else do I have? Oh, this is so cute. I really like this. This is another Just Nan. This is Which Way. I did put the charm on there. So I need to have that framed or finished somehow, whatever. So I mean, I feel like I did a lot this year. And I have a lot of plans for next year. And I'll get into that actually. I have a couple things to show you that I want to stitch next year. So sorry if this is kind of like haphazard here, but I got stuff to do today. Plus I want to get my hour into Carmel today. This is Ruth Gibb. This is another XJU design fabric. And like I say, I know it's Zweigart. I still have an issue with some of the fabrics that I purchased online. Some Tabby Cat that apparently is Zweigart based, but it doesn't feel quite like this other stuff. But this is an XJU fabric, and I swear to God, I don't know what she does to her fabric, but it is so soft, and honestly, it smells good when it shows up. And this is a 46 count. So this is Ruth Gibb by Hands Across the Sea. This was a really quick to stitch. If you guys are looking for, some people call it a blessing sampler or just like good luck sampler, whatever you want to call it, something that you start early January with the intention of finishing it before the end of the month, so you'll have good stitching mojo throughout the rest of the year, whatever. I would suggest Ruth Gibb. This went so quickly. It went so quickly that I was like nearing the end and going, this should have taken me longer, right? I mean, it was really fun, but I love that fabric. So I still have a pretty big piece of that fabric. I'm kind of saving it for something. I don't know what. It's very dramatic modeled. Okay, that's for Words of Wisdom. I'll show that to you guys another time. This is, oh, this is great sampler. Now this is Tabby Cat linen, and it feels great, and is Weigart based. So this is just the ticket. This is 46 count. I was gifted this chart because it is actually part of the first red box from Nicola Parkman. And why am I drawing a blank? Oh, Letters from Europe. So I was gifted this chart, and I got to stitch it. And I'm gonna have this one framed, and I've got this beautiful ceramic pomegranate that I'm gonna hang next to it that I got in Greece. I would like to go back to Greece. I was telling Ryan, my husband, that I don't think we've been on a lot of trips. That one, and we've eaten a lot of great food. We've also had a lot of disappointing food, but that's just how it goes, right? But I was telling him, I don't think I've eaten so well on any of our trips except for, you know, as we ate in Greece. And he's like, well, what about Rome and Vatican City? I was like, okay, you're right. I don't know how I forgot about that. Rome absolutely wins. But other than that, it's Greece. Yeah, food is so good. And he and I do not care for olives, and we easily avoided olives the whole trip. But we ate so much cheese and all sorts of different meats. Just, I think we had meat from like 6 different animals. It was great. It was great during our time there. Oh, and then this I finished. Now this chart was gifted to attendees of Great British Sampler Weekend Comes to America, October 2024. That's something I get to look forward to next year. And I'm going to the attic in just 2 weeks. Is it 2 weeks away? Oh, I'm so excited. I got an email from Jean. It was like this big long email about, you know, what to expect and what to bring and what we're looking forward to and restaurant recommendations and transportation things. I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Oh, and shopping and stuff. I'm glad I'm going a day early because I'm going to get a whole day of shopping. I think I'm going to need it. I think I'm just going to need it just to like walk around the store and look at all the models and go, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. So yeah, I got a lot done in 2023. I hope you guys had a good year of stitching as well. I feel like I did. I feel like I learned a lot. I mean, for example, I used YouTube tutorials and figured out how to hem stitch. Now this is pretty messy, but I did it. And I went in 12 months, you know, from stitching on 32 count to stitching all the way up to 56 count and using different materials and using different linen dyers and different charts and reproduction designers. And I mean, once I got into it, it was overwhelming and yet exciting, and I have become obsessed. I have become obsessed. We had my in-laws, so Ryan's parents and his grandmother came over a couple days after Christmas and hung out for 6 hours or something, and everything that we had to do leading up to that, not just to prepare for them coming over for dinner, but just like other regular household stuff and everything. I actually really didn't get any stitching in that day, and I was so bummed. So it was a really good day and we had a lot of fun, but it was like, I really want to be stitching right now. I really want to be stitching. So the next day I got in a lot of stitching. Oh, and that was the thing I wanted to say actually about Carmel, because this is what I was thinking of as I just tell you this story. As I had been thinking that whole day, I was like, oh, I'm not going to get my hour in on Carmel, and I didn't. So I put in an hour on Christmas Eve, and then I put in an hour on Boxing Day, and then I put in an hour on the 28th, and then yesterday the 29th. So what is that, 4 hours that I've gotten in? This doesn't look like 4 hours, does it? But it is. It is. I think I'll be able to, surely I'll finish it next year. Surely I will. Well, also for next year, I've got some plans. Now, I had talked to you guys about a chart that I found that I thought would be really good to stitch a little bit each month. Alba Stitcher, Amanda, you can find her on YouTube and Instagram. this year she stitched the monthly Quakers by From the Heart Needle Art by Wendy. She did one a month, January and January, February and February, etc. And I liked that idea. I didn't really care for those charts enough to stitch them, but I liked the idea. And I had known about this chart for a while. I mentioned this to you last time. This is a reflet de soie, and this is called Des Fleurs toute l'année, so flowers all the year. And it has 12 baskets or vases of flowers, whatever you want to call them. And it has the months, they're in French, but then also throughout it has this little poem. And I actually looked it up, and they're sayings. You know how we say April showers bring May flowers? It's stuff like that. So, janvier de glace fait le point, février qui passe le rond. And it goes on. And there was one that I thought. No, I don't remember what it was that I was going to mention specifically, but it is neat. And I went ahead and ordered this chart, and I got all the Gloriana for it. And the Gloriana, when they come, they're all twisted and they're fabulous, and you just want to leave them like that. But I did actually card them up. I did. But look at these colors. Oh my God. I am missing one. I'm missing 122. Because I actually was like, oh, well, 123 is really close to 122. I'll just get that. But 123 is already in the chart. I think actually I could just use this 123 for both 123 and 122. But we'll see. Anyway, beautiful colors though. We've got Cocola, Antique Pink, Victorian Rose. This Wood Pond is really cool. It's like a blue-green combo. This red clay is neat. This one is actually what's used, this Cocola. Look at the depth of color there. This is what's used for all the words on it. So looking at this to me looks really warm. And I wanted to use a warm fabric, a warm colored fabric, like something with a pink or brown tone to it. But I haven't settled on anything. Believe it or not, I actually don't have a ton of neutral colored fabrics left in 46 count. So I'm hoping that I'll get something soon. Because I've got a couple options. I have a couple things that I could use, but I kind of had them earmarked for some other projects. So I might just steal them and use it for this, or I might just get something new. But another thing I wanted to show you guys were these floss drops. Look at it. It's a hedgehog. Look at him. Look at these floss drops. They're so pretty. I got these from Charlie Feathers, and you can find her on Ko-Fi or Coffee. I don't know how to say it. It's K-O-F-I. I will link her below. And these were not at all very expensive, even coming from England with the shipping. But they're so pretty. They're all unique. Each one is unique and hand painted, and they're just so cute. And I thought, you know, this is going to be a project that's going to take me a year to finish, which on purpose, and I would really like to kit them up in a really fun way. So I did that. I got 2 sets because this one project was going to have 17 colors, and she sold them in sets of 16. I was like, well, then I need 2 sets. But oh, look at this guy. He's so cute. He's so cute. There's another one there though that I really liked. Oh, this is pretty. That's just abstract. There's not even much to it. And then she has these stickers on the back, and I use that to write the info of the colors. So that's one project that I'm looking forward to next year. Another thing is, Ryan and I were going out to dinner the other night at 4:30 p.m. I kid you not. And I get this text, 14 images and a really long text from Laura. I was like, what is going on? And I see that it's not an emergency. Nobody has died. It's cross stitch related, which could be an emergency, but in that moment it was not. So I just responded to her. I was like, going to dinner. I'll have to look at this later, LOL, or whatever I said. And what it was she got an idea from watching somebody else's Flosstube or something. She wanted to do a stitch along with me. She wanted us to pick a hats and to split it up into 12 parts and to stitch a little bit on it each month. And then at the end of the year, presumably you would have a finished piece. And so she sent me 14 images. Well, of the 14 images she sent me, I only had 5 of those charts. And there were a couple others that I wanted to purchase, but I was like, I don't want to try to, you know, kit this all up in the next couple weeks just so I can get started on this with her. So I said, well, you know, I would narrow it down to these 2 or 3 or something. And I already have all the thread for this one. And when you look at it, it has 12 rows of alphabets. So why don't we just do this one? Now this is a big piece, so Laura, I'm a little concerned. If it seems too big, let's pick something else. But I was looking at it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It really does have, I mean, it has 11 rows of alphabet, and then the last row is numbers, and then her name and the year in which it was stitched, and then you border. So I told her, I was like, well, we could do a row a month plus a little bit of border. Like you do a row and do a little bit of border, and do a row and do a little bit of border. And so Laura, I was looking at this, and you know, the stitch count is 266 by 273, which sounds really big. But then I was looking at the letters themselves, and I thought, well, there's not that much in a letter, right? So if you do just a few letters a night, then in less than a week, you could do that whole row, right? Right, Laura? Right? This is a good idea. And then Laura, I know, had already been excited about and had been using that hashtag hats first week of the month Sal. I believe that's what it is. Hashtag hats first week of the month Sal. Go onto Instagram if you have an Instagram account and look that up. And the idea is that the 1st through the 7th of every month, you would pull out a hats project that you have, new or old or whatever, and you would stitch on that. Now, this calls for Marbled Khaki by XG Designs, which I think actually is what I used for Ruth Gibb, if I remember correctly. No, I could be wrong. I haven't looked at the information for this in a while. I love this fabric. It's pretty dramatic though. And when I was at Sweater Weather in Philadelphia, I bought 6 pieces of XG fabric because I loved it so much. And one that I bought was gold sand. I mean, look at this. Oh, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. I think the color is showing up really well. So it is more like a off-white ivory color with a little bit of gold modeling in it. It's so pretty. I love it. And the colors for Marie-Louise Perret, these are the colors, if I can show you. But I think the gold sand fabric really picks up these tones. These are the 2 colors here that are called for in the chart. So Laura, I'd be curious to know what fabric you're using and whether you're using 103 or Soie d'Alger or DMC. And if anybody else wants to join us, we're not going to say no. Come on and join us and encourage us. We want to get this done, right? I have been looking at this one for quite a while. My mom gifted me the chart, and because it only requires 5 colors, I went ahead and ordered the colors almost right away. And now that I have this really beautiful piece of linen, I've been excited about it. So I am glad that Laura suggested this idea, and then I'm glad that this one works out so well. Honestly, a row a month and a little bit of border, I think we can do it. So those are like long-term plans. This would be stitched over the course of the year, as would this one. This would be stitched over the course of the year. But in the short term, oh, and Carmel, this is gonna be an hour a day until it's done, right? But in the short term, working pretty regularly on Hannah Campbell, and then I have a lot of charts now that I have accumulated, but I don't necessarily have fabric and or floss for all of those charts. So I can't really say what I'm going to get started on soon, if I'm going to have another new start soon. But because I am going to the attic in just a couple weeks for Sampler Symposium, I know that we're going to be given charts as part of the symposium, and then we'll be able to kit up whatever we like, plus purchase whatever else we want from the attic. So I've got a lot to look forward to. So in the last few weeks, I've seen so many things that I want to get. It's like, oh, I want to get that, I want to get this, and I want to kit this up, and I want to be able to start this whenever I want. But then I thought, calm down, you're going to the attic in just a couple weeks. You gotta keep it together, keep it together, keep it together. Has anybody else out there seen Bowfinger? I feel like that movie is so underrated, but I love it. But I think about that whenever I say keep it together. I think about Eddie Murphy. Because when I get there, I'm not going to be able to keep it together. I swear to God, I'm going to be so excited when I get there. And I feel like other people are really excited too. I know so many people who have already been there, and yet they're still so excited. So that tells me it's definitely something worth getting excited about. But I have to kind of tell myself to calm down, right? So just work on what you already have started. Oh, and I also have a shepherd's song. I made progress on that, and I haven't pulled it out, so I'll show it to you next time, and you'll see so much progress on it. I got a lot of stitching done on that when Ryan and I were on the last couple road trips, and I stitched on that all of Christmas Day. That was the thing I stitched on. Like, we sat around and watched TV, and I stitched on a shepherd's song. So I'm making progress. I have a lot of sheep done. It's really cute. Okay, so other than that, I don't think I really have anything else to show you guys. I mean, I have plans to show you other things next time. When I talk to you again, I will have visited the attic and accumulated more stuff I don't need. And made progress on other projects and projects I've shown you today. So I think there's a lot to look forward to. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention. I know I mentioned Somi Sarah. I've been watching her Flosstube. I've also been watching Brenda and Laura and Cornhusker State Stitchers. But I've also been watching Caroline and Carrie Evertote Notes from the Workshop. And then I've also been watching Caroline's specific videos on her own channel, which is Off the Grid Needle Arts. Because, you know, I've seen them, but then it was like a week or so into December that I saw that Caroline was doing this daily Vlogmas, Flossmas series of videos for this stitch along. Oh my God, and I got so obsessed with it. And I'm so sorry that I didn't know about the like whole stitch along mystery Sal floss and kit and everything in the box, and you ordered in February, and once they were gone, I had no idea. So I just found out about this, you know, this month. It's funny though, because I was watching those videos, daily videos, and as I say, I started about a week into the month. I was like, oh, that's cool. And it's interesting to see how it's developing little by little, you know, like 100 or 200 stitches every day, or not even that. And it comes together to create this piece that is now finished, because it was finished on Christmas. But it was an Evertote, Roxy Floss Co. Modern Folk Embroidery amalgamation thing, project. And it got to the point where I would wake up in the morning and I was like, oh, I got to see what Caroline has posted. So I wake up in the morning and I go out in the living room and I turn on, and there it is. And I'm watching it. And then Ryan would kind of like be in and out. Sometimes he actually wakes up with me, sometimes he doesn't. But then it got to the point where he was like getting interested in it too. And so I have it on one morning and he comes out and he's like, what did Caroline stitch today? And he comes out and he like parks himself on the couch and he's watching like this. He's watching like this. And then there was one video that Caroline had her husband John read this poem. And so Caroline shows all her stitching and she's talking about this and that and showing a finish and whatever. And then John comes on and he's reading the poem, and Caroline had put images of snowfall and, you know, like Canadian winters and all this stuff over John reading the poem. Well, I made the mistake of talking through this, because then once I shut my trap, Ryan was like, well, now we got to reverse it. We got to go back because I want to listen to the poem. I was like, okay. It was really funny. So it was I had no idea he would actually be invested in something like this. It was really interesting. So does that mean I have permission to buy the box next year? He'll be like, what are you stitching today with Caroline? But it's really fun. I like her and I like Carrie and I like them together. And I like Carrie's ridiculous knit pearl tattoos. It's so funny. So funny. That was just a fun thing. And I was, I wasn't even participating in the sal, but when it was over, I was really bummed because then I don't get my 15 minutes of Caroline every morning. It's just so silly. But I really enjoyed those videos. So I'm excited. I'm excited for next year's holiday countdown stitch along. I think that's what it was called with Modern Folk Embroidery. I've never stitched any Modern Folk Embroidery pieces, and I keep going onto that website and I keep looking at everything that Jacob has put out, and I cannot make a decision. And it's not because I don't like anything. It's because the stuff I do like is massive. I'm like, that will take me so long. The AKGIT, that is a really cool sampler. And I think when you finish it, if you finish it, Katie Strachan will finish hers. I don't know about anybody else. But when you finish it, it would be spectacular on the wall. Then I had this thought though, those individual motifs on AKGIT, I thought, oh, those would be so cool to make ornaments. You could just stitch one of those on like 56 or something and make ornaments, and how pretty. And you could do some in red and some in green, and how pretty would that be? Because I was stitching Harriet Hay, and I got done with this house. And remember, I was complaining about filling in the windows and stuff. But I love this house so much, I want to stitch it again, and I want to make an ornament out of it. How pretty would it be? Because it's like red, and you could do just a little bit of green underneath it. And then I thought, well, wouldn't it be neat if out of all these samplers that we love, you just stitched, you stitched the sampler, of course, but then you just stitch the house again and make a little ornament. You could have a whole tree covered in houses. How cute would that be? And most of them are red or pink. I found a pattern the other day and I had to buy it because it had a pink house on it. I was like, pink house. Whatever. I don't know. But a lot of stuff to be excited about. Keep stitching, keep sharing with me. This has been so fun. I have so many people commenting on my pictures on Instagram, and especially with Jeff the Duck. Jeff the Duck, but people commenting on pictures just to say like nice stitching, or I love that piece, or I'm in the middle of mine and I need to get back to it because I love the finish, and stuff like that. Just any little interaction. It's always nice. It's nice to know. I mean, I make the videos because I want to. I put the pictures online because I want to. But when you know that somebody else is seeing it and getting some joy out of it, that's nice too. And I feel like I really have connected with some people, which has been nice. People I haven't even met. Like I finally met Laura in October, and I will meet a lot of people at Sampler Symposium, but there are other people that I feel like I've connected with and I have an Instagram relationship with, even though we've never met in person. I don't know your last name. I have no idea what state you live in, stuff like that. But it's been fun. One other thing I wanted to mention was I got an order from number 12 Stitch Co. I meant to talk about this earlier, but I see it sitting here next to me. So Mom wanted some fabric that I had, and I was like, it's 40 count, you're not going to stitch on it, and I'll only have a scrap this wide anyway, so you're not going to get it. So I just ordered her some French pear is what she wanted. And Mom, I did get 28 count, not 32 count, which is good, because you're still going to be like this, trying to work on it. But for myself, I got Outback Sky, which I really wanted. Look at that blue. And then I got, this is so pretty, Red Rose. Look at how rich that is. I think I'm going to use some off-white, not white, not B5200, not Snowball, but like a parchment. I think I'll use a parchment and do some monochromatic things and have those made into little ornaments. Wouldn't that be cute? Because I got a pretty big chunk of fabric here. Could make a lot of them. And then Nicola had this, and this was kind of an impulse purchase. This is peppermint ice. And I thought maybe like a Brenda Gervais snowman sort of thing would look good on this. Or I could actually do like a bigger piece. Maybe that weird Kathy Barrick Santa or something. I don't know. You guys tell me. But this is Peppermint Ice. Nicola of Number 12 Stitch Company. I think she still has some of this. This is 40 count. That's what I buy. Buy 40 count to stitch with cotton. And then for everything else, for like silks, I like to get 46 and 56. 56, I mean, I need good light and I don't always have it, but I persist because I like how it looks. So anyway, I'm gonna cut this video here. We're right at an hour, which is what I was aiming for. I feel like I got to show you guys a lot of stuff, and I'll have even more to show you next time, which will be 3 weeks from now, near the end of January. Until then, you can find me on Instagram at StitchStitchBead. You can go back and watch older videos, please be kind, here on YouTube. And then please do check out other Flosstubers. And then if there's anyone that you feel that I should be watching and I'm not, you can suggest them to me. As they say, I found some people, but I'm sure there are plenty that I have just not come across because YouTube has decided it's not gonna put that up on my homepage, right? They suggest what they suggest and I don't really understand the reasoning. But so if there's something that I'm missing that you think I should be aware of, please share. And until then, I hope you guys have a lot of fun stitching at home. Enjoy the holidays. I know a lot of you are going back to work soon. I feel for you. And I'll talk to you in 3 weeks. Happy New Year and happy stitching.